back to that Millwall podcast. My name's Omer. Joining me for the Inside Man, the opposition view for us today, is Ben from W12 Podcast. Mate, thanks for joining us. How you doing? You good?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, getting there. I've had a bit of a flu the last few days, and it's just getting over it, but all good, thank you.
It's going around, mate. I've had the same as well, but thankfully should be fine and fit for Saturday. So I look forward to my trip to Loftus Road. Although I've never seen us win there, mate. I mean, I was trying to look through the archives just whilst I was waiting for you. I think you've always had the upper hand that your gaffer over us. I feel like in recent years it does, it sticks in the moon for us. Don't know what you think when we all come to town.
Yeah, so I've been the last 3 or 4 games at Loftus Road. I can't remember coming away with a defeat. It normally ends in either a draw. We've drew quite a lot, haven't we?
Yes, we have. Yeah.
There was a game at Loftus Road when you were 2-0 up. I don't know if you remember it, and we scored 2 right at the end. I think it was Matt Smith scored a couple, so I remember that one. But
good old Matt Smith.
Yeah, it's always lively when you boys are coming over.
Yeah, no, it should be good. I mean, we'll get straight into it, mate. Obviously, I was looking at your form this year, and obviously, sometimes take a look at the championship fixtures elsewhere, mate. But you win this in 8 games. It's kind of gone a bit under the radar, it feels like, if I was a Millwall fan looking in from the outside. What's kind of happened there? Obviously, Critchley's in charge now, isn't he? It's kind of been a bit up and down for you boys recently.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't gone under the radar our end. We've won 1 in 15, so 1 in 14 in the league. So it's actually a lot worse than that. We've drew quite a few, but we've probably of those 15 games that we've lost, we probably deserved, or what we haven't won of the 14 or 13 that we haven't won, we probably haven't deserved to win any. I mean, there was one with Sheffield United which we drew in the last minute, but other than that, so we're not in great form. I don't know if you remember, but Mickey Beale left us in October. When we were top of the league. And it's just destroyed the whole football club. He brought in players that wanted to play for him. It feels like now. And now he's gone, a lot of the players look a bit lost. We've got a couple of loan players in and a couple of players that he brought in on frees that we either haven't seen since or they're just really out of form. So Critchley is trying to... It's difficult coming in mid-season, isn't it? But he's trying to do what he can. But
of course,
it feels like a big job for him.
Definitely. I mean, I feel like why it's gone under the radar from a neutral or looking at it from the outside. You're on 39 points and still, only 4 or 5 away from the playoffs. But like you say, you was top and flying when you had Mickey Beale in charges. Is it kind of, like you say, obviously with regards to, him leaving and players coming into play for him, is it just because there's different types of styles compared to the 2 managers, or it's just not really happened, or what's it feel like from your side?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfair to say that Critchley is all to blame, or it's all come since he's come in, because before Mickey Beale left, we lost 3 in a row just before he left, and the feeling was that he was going to go to Wolves. I don't know if you remember, he was literally about to go to Wolves. He changed his mind last minute. I think the feeling around the place is that he knew that the Rangers job was coming, because a month later he got offered that job and off he went. So in that period between Wolves and Rangers, the players it felt like something was going on. You could sense that from the players, and that has just carried on. And I mean, we haven't won a home game since Mickey Beale in I think it was Wigan in October.
It was, yeah. I was researching that. I mean, it feel like kind of a bit of a odd place to go at the minute when you go to Loftus, mate.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, it is. We can't seem to win. I mean, I'd say it was a really good time to play us, but at the same time, at some point, it's going to have our fortunes. You'd think are going to have to change, because we've got some really good players there. Really good when you look at the squad on paper. So we're hoping we can get going again. It has to happen in the next couple of weeks, otherwise the season is just going to filter away.
Pass you by, yeah. I mean, that's what I was going to point on. Obviously not won since October at home. I mean, we're over the pessimistic fans. So like, you hear us, you got to look forward to going to Loftus Road, thinking, London derby. We've got 3,000 fans going. We're like, it should be a good game and hope for the best. Then you see you've not won since October, and it's like, oh, I'm a bit like you. It's got to change eventually. It's got to turn eventually. But I mean, you're right to mention your players. I mean, obviously in the January window as well, one player you kind of picked us to, it felt like at the time, was Jamal Lowe. Whether or not our interest was genuine or not, but you're right. Obviously, you've got Jamal Lowe, Tyler Roberts, even Lyndon Dykes, who's obviously a player apparently we pursued in the January window and had a bid knocked back. He's since got pneumonia. Obviously, unfortunate for him there, and hopefully he's well wishes to him there. But I mean, it is a good squad. Even Chris Willock in there. I think he's a joint top goal scorer of Dykes, isn't he? But I mean, his goals a bit of a shortage, would you say? Like looking as a QPR fan,
massively, mate. I don't think since since that win in October, we've only scored more than one goal once, I think. That was Reading a few weeks ago. So, if it wasn't for Jamal Lowe coming in and scoring, he's only the only one scoring at the moment. If you look at the goal scorers since he's been here, no one else has scored, I don't think. So, so he's a real good coup and one that he's going to be. He's lightning quick, and if we can get him in behind you, he's a problem. But other than that, Lyndon Dykes is out for I'd imagine for a month or two. We've just brought in Chris Martin. I don't know if you saw from Bristol City. So he's going to add a bit of steel up there, I'd imagine, trying to hold it up. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts on Saturday, to be honest. But Ilias Chair and Willock, mate, are just bang out of form. They really are. Neither of them are doing too much. Again, you're hoping one game that'll just turn and they'll both just find form and we'll be back going again because we rely on them a lot.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I look at your side, I see like a youngish kind of experienced championship side, really. You know, the likes of Jimmy Dunn in there, who's I've always liked when he's played against us. Ethan Laird, you know, like you said, Ilias Chair, Luke Amos as well, I've always quite liked. Andre Dazelle. It's a good young side there. Is it maybe missing that kind of bit of championship know-how, like experience maybe? Because I see you got a Domer in there who's still getting games for you. I mean, is it not really ticking? It feels like it's just missing that kind of guidance or kind of a bit like still, like you say, with with Martin signing up front.
Yeah, I could completely agree. Yeah, you know, that's probably one reason why, apart from Lyndon Dykes being out, I think we would have added a striker anyway. And him coming in will add the experience because we really lack it. We brought in Leon Balogun.
Yeah.
From Rangers, right? Absolutely smashed at the start of the season. Brilliant, best defender. He'd be the best defender in the Championship. But since Beale's left, we haven't seen him. He's gone missing. He's injured apparently. But he's 34, playing in sort of European Championships last season. So he was excellent for us in experience. But so losing him and Salter, Clark Salter, he's been out injured. So we've had a nightmare with injuries as well. But Johansson's been out for 2 months. He's back. He'll be back Saturday. But Stefan Johansson, he's another one. He's the captain who brings us a lot of experience. But we've just lost our way, mate. There's not many positives. I did our podcast yesterday or the day before, and it wasn't the most positive of podcasts, put it that way.
What about your January window then? I mean, we was linked with Dykes. I'm sure you would have seen him. Supposedly, we've been a £3 million. I was a bit surprised to see you guys kind of offer him up because I know he was kind of the focal point for you pretty much all season. I mean, I don't know if he was an offer or I don't know if you guys from your angle. I mean, from our side, it was a bit out of the blue. Obviously, we tried to go for Nisbet. I don't know if you saw from Hibernian and he came back from an injury. He scored, I think, 7 and 8 for Hibs, and then we decided against signing him. He since got injured, so we don't know whether or not it was him deciding against us or the club. But we then looked at Dykes. But was that a bit of a shock to see for your side, like QPR fans, do you think? Or is it you guys offering to get him out? Or what's that about?
Dykes is one that Lyndon Dykes is one that will divide fan opinion like no other player, I think, in this way. He is my personal opinion is there's something in there, right? There's a player in there. He isn't the quickest. He doesn't hold the ball up particularly well, and he isn't a box in the box. So you give him any more than an instinct, and he won't score, right? But he's nifty in the air, and he puts himself about a bit, and he works ridiculously hard, right? Literally, he will not stop running for 90 minutes. So I was surprised that you bid 3 million for him. I took it, and I believe from what I've heard from in the club, the deal was structured not favourable, really, as in there wasn't much up front, and it was all in instalments and bonuses and stuff like that. So that probably we wouldn't have accepted that. Had you had bid close to 3 million straight up in money, we might have taken it.
Interesting.
But
I mean,
with it being January, it's difficult to sell players, isn't it, and find players. So that might have had something to do with it. But if it was a sum of 3 million, you probably would have left.
Interesting to know. I mean, on the January window, obviously we mentioned Jamal Lowe coming in, and obviously Chris Martin signing as well. But was it a kind of a good window as a whole for QPR? Would you say? I mean, I didn't see any more arrivals aside from them two, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
What was the feeling amongst fans with that? Did you kind of think maybe Critchley would get backed a bit more, or?
I think that Neil Critchley will be dying to get to the end of the season so he can put his stamp on the team, because it really isn't his squad and players. We've got loan players in that aren't his and stuff like that we can't get rid of. You know, we've got 5 loans in. You can't get any more, right? We've got Tyler Roberts, you know, Ethan Laird, Tim Irabudum from Villa, who's a really good player, but like 19. I think the feeling within the fans is that we want to try and progress some of our youth players, really, and but at the same time, everybody wants that competitive squad, don't they, to compete? And we're on a really bad run at the moment, so it's a bit of catch-22 for the club, really. You know, we've got a really good youngster called Sinclair Armstrong. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He's 19, Irish, under 21 international. He's a beast, right? I don't know if you'll get to see him, and he'll wind all the fans up. He's a bit like just good flying into tackles and stuff like that. He's a striker. And we all want him to get going and get games, but the problem is with the pressure around the club at the moment, you put in a young player to deal with that. It's kind of tough, but he might get some minutes on the weekend as well. You get to see him; he's a really good player, and hopefully in the coming sort of months and years, he'll progress. But the window, we got rid of a few out. We got rid of Macaulay Bonne, George Thomas, a couple of sort of fringe players who just don't ever play, or if they do play, they're never good enough. So that in that respect, I thought was pretty good. I would have liked to have seen us bring in a couple of fullbacks, because we haven't got any backup for our fullbacks. But again, you know, we've spent quite a lot on the 2 fullbacks we've got. Do you want to spend any more of your budget on backups? You know what I mean? It's I can understand why the club didn't. But yeah, relatively happy, mate, I'd say.
What are the finances like at QPR? I feel like you went through an era of, obviously, you know, the well-known era where you guys were in the Premier League and then had Harry Redknapp and then came down to the Championship. And I feel like obviously a lot of that was stripped back under Holloway, and obviously the likes of Eze was there, and you kind of went through another transition after that with Warburton and stuff like that. But after that, like, kind of what is the kind of, have you guys got spending power, a bit of like money to spend if it's there? Or I feel like it's still a young kind of nurtured squad that's missing the kind of, you know, bit of financial oomph really to attract good players, I feel like.
Yeah, so we're not close to breaking any FFP rules or anything like that. We're fully like we're in those parameters. Our accounts are out in a couple of weeks, actually, funnily enough. But I believe that we're financially okay. You know, we've got rich owners who fund the club. You know, they say they put in £1 million a month in to keep us above the water. And they want to spend, but they just can't because of the rules that are in place. We're sort of flying on the easy money. We sold it Breezy for like, you know, 15, 20 million a few seasons ago. That money's going to run out soon. But I think that just like the most of the Championship, no one's really spending much money. I was surprised you had 3 million to spend, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think it's a bit like yourselves, really. Like, we have like a chairman that backs us and writes off the losses in a sense, and puts in, you know, about 10 to 15 million pound a year, and we're kind of strengthening that wage budget every year. I think we've got a 20 million pound wage budget supposedly at the minute, which beggars belief to me. But I think because we've been in the league for 6, 7, 8 years now, it's like it's kind of acclimatizing as time goes on. But it's kind of like with you guys, it feels like you've took back all the cash and kind of strapped back a bit, and now it's like kind of starting to build again. I don't know if that's how it feels amongst QPR fans or.
Yeah, there isn't much money in the club. You know, there really isn't. There might be the odd £1 million here and there floating around, but I think we're reliant on selling one of our assets at the moment. I think in the summer, Ilias Chair, Chris Willock, Seni Dieng, the keeper, or maybe a Rob Dickey, the centre back. They may well be sacrificed to bring in a bit of revenue so that we can go out and buy 3 or 4 players. But if we don't, then it's going to be frees and loans, mate. Again, I'd imagine in the summer. So there's not much money in the Championship anyway, is there? I think I saw already 4 clubs spent any money in January, and 3 of them had parachute payments. Do you know what I mean? There's just not much floating around.
That's it. No, I agree. I mean, is Rob Dickey? He's not scored yet this season, and I always think of him and his effort against us at the start of last season, mate. Where he brings it out from the halfway line, 40 yards out, and whacks it one. Is he due one? I mean, how's he been playing for you boys this year?
Nah, not great, mate. Again, I'm sorry to have to say this. You know what'll happen, mate? Well, on Saturday, every player that I'm saying is not great will end up.
Dickey's going to end up scoring a hat-trick, I feel like, at this rate. I mean, he's not scored this season. He halted us last year. I feel like we had that moment last year, start the season. We go 1-0 up thinking, yeah, we actually look quite good here. And then he scores that and it turns into a 1-1 draw. But I don't know. I mean, he's always been that kind of player. I feel like he's ready to make the step up, but he's kind of stepped away a bit, I feel like.
Yeah, he's not kicked on that. Do you know what? My uncle, I was a massive Rob Dickey advocate pre that season. And I was bigging him up all summer. That game, he scored a worldie, and I was like, there you go, look, he's amazing. He's going to be worth 15, 20 million. Mate, since me saying that in the pub after, he's just gone downhill, mate. Really has.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a player in there. He'll have the odd good game, but if you get him behind him, he's golden. Like if the game's in front of him, if he can bring the ball out, or the game's in front of him, that's with truth. Did Jimmy Dunn as well. But if you can get him behind us, I don't know if you've got much pace floating up top at the moment, but if you can, that's what I'd be doing.
I think pace is all we signed in the window. We signed Duncan Watmore from Middlesbrough, you know, the old Sunderland player, and also Ollie Burke as well, the player that's always had that kind of potential, and we had him on loan last year as well. But I mean, I think that will be kind of a ploy from us, I feel like, in a weird way. But I mean, to someone that's never watched QPR before, not watching this season, mate, how would you describe, like, I mean, I know you've not been playing well this season or the last 10 games, but what's the playing style like, or what we could expect? I mean, I know you boys like to get it down on the floor and play in front, like you say, with your centre halves and stuff like that, but how would you describe the playing style at QPR?
So we rely on our fullbacks quite a lot. We've got Kenneth Powell on one wing and Ethan Laird on the other, who are little, quick, and they will get forward as much as they can. So we rely on them. We play a 4 at the moment, and this may change. I'm expecting Critchley to change tactics at any game because it's not turning around, right? So at some point he's got to change it. But if he does what he has been doing, it's 4 at the back. It's you two, so it's a 4-2-3-1, and the front 4 are very much interchangeable. Jamal Lowe, Ilias Chair, Chris Willock, and Tyler Roberts. He's injured, but those 4 have been they just try and move around, and they'll end up being everywhere on the pitch. So that'll be how we play. We'll get the ball down, and we will play, and a bit like Swansea, But I wouldn't be surprised if we changed it around at the weekend. 3 at the back's been spoke about that might happen, or with the signing of Chris Martin, maybe a bit more stable front 4, so people are actually stay in their positions, maybe with Prissy Willock and Chair on the wings, and maybe bringing another centre midfielder. That's what that's what we did at the weekend against Huddersfield, and it seemed to get us a bit more stability and a bit tougher to play against to get through.
Interesting. I mean, it'd be an interesting spectacle, I think, ahead of Saturday, mate. But what's the? I mean, ask a depressed fan after 8 games without a win. But what's your kind of prediction, I suppose, going into Saturday? You feeling confident, or what's the kind of thoughts amongst you lot and your podcast?
Well, yeah, I'm probably the most pessimistic out of all of our podcast. I think we all predicted it. I think it'll be a close game, mate. We are, it's always generally a close game between us. I mean, look, the QPR that you saw at your place earlier on in the year, you won't. I'd be surprised if you saw that QPR because we were excellent on that day. It was 2-0, wasn't it? So
yep.
I know we won't be as good as that. I just think whoever gets the first goal will be crucial. But I'll go 1-1, mate.
1-1. I feel like we need a result. I mean, we're not being terrible, but I feel like after last week we've got a tough run of games coming for ourselves. But I think we're going in with the onus of that, which makes me think as well probably a 1-1 draw. But we'll have to wait and see on that one, mate. But yeah, we'll wrap it up here anyway. I appreciate your time today, Ben, mate, and it's much obliged. And hopefully after Saturday, you guys can turn your run around, and after 9 losses in a row, or 9 defeats, you can sort yourselves out, mate.
Yeah, I hope so. Like literally, I guarantee, like when the game's over, one of the players that I've said has been terrible will probably have a worldie game. So I apologise.
But yeah, thanks to Ben anyway for joining us today on the show, and we'll be back after the game on Sunday. Thanks for listening, and see you soon.